What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters, and welcome to Light to Metal. And with me, I have
Trog!
And we are doing one of our
hard and heavy
albums of a certain year. And this year, we're doing 1978. And before we start our list,
we had a bone to pick with you meatheads.
I grabbed a couple of
not all of you.
A couple of magazines, but all these guys who are arguing with us on our videos or on Facebook about how metal didn't exist in the 70s. Yes, it did. And the stuff that we're talking about was what was considered metal.
And it's getting so old, guys. I mean, really.
It's
here's just Trog's prescription for guys who feel the need, because there's no women doing it, guys who feel the need to argue about this stupid idea of, oh, no metal in the 70s, that's not metal, blah, blah, blah. First, get a girlfriend. Or a hobby, at least. And if you can't do either of those things, learn how to jerk off. Something. Stop jerking us off. Just saying, right?
Just saying. Anyhow, I grabbed a couple of old magazines from the 70s, and I'm not saying magazines would be all and end all of history, but if you're in a court of law, you have things you prove that are written that can heavy metal survive the 70s? This is 1978. This was proclaiming the death of heavy metal in 78.
So in order to die, typically
you have to be alive.
You got to be alive at some point.
And look at the bands that are on here: Kiss, Nugent, Aerosmith, Queen, Zeppelin. I mean, this is the bands that were considered metal in the 70s.
You can't define metal by today's standards.
Right.
You'd have to define it by the standards of the time. This argument's really just getting old.
And here's another one. This is Cream Magazine. Is heavy metal dead? Kiss, Aerosmith, Nugent. I mean, it's just Van Halen. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that was. And then I grabbed this one to show too because I just thought it was cool. This is from 1980. Back from the Dead.
Heavy metal.
The new wave of heavy metal, 1980.
But it didn't exist, Rob. How could it be dead and back from the dead if it never existed?
Right. So there is a reason we call it hard and heavy, not the top heavy metal list of whatever year.
Right. We're not here to ultimately define what metal is or isn't. We're just having fun based on what we have experienced in our 48 years.
We're not trying to say Journey or Foreigner, if we show a Journey or a Foreigner record, is metal.
We would never do that.
You know, it's whatever.
Right, so we're at 1978.
1978, we're going to do 30. 30 records down from a lot. I'm going to say the half.
Even the 78 one was that big?
Yeah.
Okay. 78 was kind of a big year.
And there was a lot from, matter of fact, just maybe a month or so ago, and I'll put a link above, I did a top 10 of Canadian 1978 hard rock acts. So check that link out. You know, but most of those didn't make this list.
Let's see, who would have been on that? April Wine.
Absolutely.
Was that Nature of the Beast? Or was it?
Nope, it was way well before Nature of the Beast. It was. I can't remember the name of the album now.
That's all right. Yeah, Nature of the Beast was like 81.
81, yeah. That was the follow-up, actually.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to start, really. Scott's going to start because he's going to start.
Yeah. First one in the list, this is Angel, White Hot.
Awesome.
Just a fantastic American pop rock album. Not quite as heavy as the albums that preceded it. Very kind of a mixture of pop and prog.
I mean, people would call it glam metal.
Yeah.
I mean, some schools of thought.
And that's what I think of this. You know, you look at this picture. I mean, this looks like almost any band that came out of L.A. in the 1980s.
But they were sexier.
But they were. Oh, come on, that's punky, man. No, you know, nobody was as sexy as punky.
Okay.
Punky's whips.
So Angel, also on Casablanca, label mates with Kiss. Not as heavy as Kiss, but they were like the antithesis to Kiss. Kiss was all black and sort of evil looking, and
these guys were all angelic. Yeah.
They were kind of crafted to be that
But they had a very similar big show with the lights and the
platform heels.
The platform. They came on stage with this. They appeared on stage basically. You know,
out of pods.
No, actually they just. Yeah, I think I'm sure it was smoke and mirror kind of thing. But yeah, it was cool. And they had the Angel Gabriel introduce the band. And,
oh, I didn't know that. Well, I never saw him. So.
Anyhow,
great band.
Angel.
Well, let's see what's on here.
You've got "Don't Leave Me Lonely," which is "Ain't Gonna Eat My Heart Anymore." That was another one that was pretty. Under Suspicion was one of the heavier rockin' songs.
Winter Song is
great.
Absolute favorite. They had
a version of that because they had the Christmas song.
Yeah, same song except they changed a couple words. Yeah, I love that. "Stick Like Glue" is probably my one. From this album, it's like
right.
Whatever. It's a little bit goofy.
"Flying with Broken Wings," "Without You." That's kind of I always like the lyrics to that one more than the song itself.
Yeah, great. And this was the first one, I believe, with the new bass player.
Yes.
Mickey left, and was his name Barry Brandt? Was that his name?
Barry Brandt. Yeah.
New bass player, the one that would kind of finish out with them.
And yeah, this is a great album cover art. This is back when they hand painted art.
Yep.
It wraps around. It should have been a gatefold. Why it wasn't is beyond me. But.
And still one of the best logos ever in rock.
Absolutely.
Often imitated. Nobody has ever done the upside down, right side up logo. Says the same thing. Nobody's ever done it as good as Angel did.
All right, so there you go. So there's the first one.
First one. All right, I got. All right, this was the follow-up to a huge album 2 years prior.
Yep, 76.
Boston, Don't Look Back. We got the Boston spaceship motif going on. I liked this one. In fact, sometimes I like this one better than the first one.
I really like that album. I know that Tommy Schultz doesn't seem to. He always kind of slagged on. Oh, we rushed it out. It was 2 years.
Yeah, true. But I mean, and then how long between this one and the Third Stage album?
A decade.
Yeah. So. I like this one a lot just because it's not as overplayed. The title track is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, that's a great song.
Don't Look Back. Journey is a cool instrumental. Right? Yeah. It's Easy is a great tune. A Man I Never Be is like a rip your heart out type ballad. This guy's like, I love you, but I'm not enough. I'm not good enough, and I'll never be that man. So it's Feeling Satisfied, Good One Party is kind of like the answer to Smokin' or Rock and Roll Band from the first one. It's a good album. It's good, solid hard rock from 1978, and really one of the last of a breed, because 78 was a pretty big turning point in heavy music or hard music,
and
or whatever you call it.
This was the beginning of a different sound too. It was almost like I think they called it arena rock back then, but now they call it AOR.
Album oriented.
Now you've got whole groups that are attempting to just get that sound.
Right. Sean Pilot is actually involved with one or two.
Correct.
Live Say, and he also was in Final Sign. No. Final Sign is totally heavy. What was the other band? Line of Fire.
That's it, Line of Fire.
Very much along these lines.
Boston meets Asia kind of thing.
Yeah, Sean's a great metal singer, and he's a great singer of this type of music. So check out Final Sign, Live Say, and Line of Fire with Sean Pilot on lead vocals.
This next one is basically an EP, and from what I understand, it was put out basically as a contract obligation kind of record. But I love this record. I played it more times than I could even remember. Ever since I was a kid, I love the album art. Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh yeah, the album art's classic. I don't know who did it, but wow.
It's just a live EP basically. There's what, 5, 6 songs? 5
songs.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 songs. But killer version of Godzilla on here.
Yep.
And then kick out the jams. MC5. That just.
Yeah, that's definitely that's kind of like the center point of this one.
I loved
hearing that one because that wasn't on anything.
And of course, Astronomy is just one of Blue Oyster Cult's greatest songs ever.
And We Got to Get Out of This Place, the Animals cover.
Animals cover.
Never heard that one prior.
Yep, that's a great. I just love it. It's short, and people always like, I wish it was the whole concert.
Now, when they did the deluxe version,
they released the entire thing, right?
Yeah, there's more tracks on it.
I just thought it was perfect the way it was.
It was.
It's just one of those albums you listen to, and it's just perfect the way it is.
Yeah, this is just. Let me just grab it. Just for the sake of completion. All right, so this was released in 2007. They put out the deluxe edition, which is Legacy edition, which is deluxe edition is usually I think the Columbia or Sony based stuff. And this was on. Oh no, this was Columbia. Never mind. Opposite. Shut up, Trog. Okay, first 7 tracks are on here, but then there's 7 more tracks. So there's definitely a full show on here, including a DVD. So pretty cool. I mean, if they're going to do a deluxe or legacy edition, do it that way.
Yep,
for sure.
I'm going to show them the next one as well. This is the only one we have on CD, and the reason being is I just didn't bring it. I forgot to bring the vinyl.
I don't have this on album.
So this is Cheap Trick, Heaven Tonight, 3rd album in the perfection of the trilogy of the first 3 Cheap Trick albums.
This was the one with Surrender on it.
Correct.
And what was the other big one on this one?
Auf Wiedersehen is on this one. Let's see here.
Surrender.
California Man.
No, I guess I was thinking of something else. Surrender was the big track.
And that's still one of their most, biggest songs, biggest hit songs. So, and I think Auf Wiedersehen is one of their heavier songs. That's just a great song. It's almost like a punk vibe to it.
Yeah.
Produced by Tom Werman, who was basically the guy producing a lot of those '70s bands back then.
Now, wasn't there
big arena rock bands?
They had another producer. I think it was on In Color. Steve Albini produced one version. And I think they had two productions of it, and the deluxe version that came out had both. So.
And then Jack Douglas produced their first album.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there was a couple versions of this one too.
But there's kind of they're called a power pop band. It's definitely not metal. It's hard rock for sure.
Yeah.
People always call them like Beatlesque in their sound. But I think that's kind of simplifying their sound. I think they're a little more complex than that.
They are, and Robin Zander's got one of the best rock and roll voices, bar none.
Yep.
And it's still the same way it was today. It's the same way now that it used to be back then.
They almost had a punk vibe.
Yeah, he's got grit in all the right places, but he's melodic, and I think that definitely harkens to the Beatles part. Oh, before we go any further, I don't know, you hear this in the background. We usually tried to play year-specific music when we do one of these, but we kind of gave it up because a lot of it was getting dinged on YouTube. So just to kind of give props to what's playing in the background now, this is a band from New York called Clouds Taste Satanic, and they're an instrumental kind of doom stoner band. Really cool stuff. I play them a lot on the radio show. It's just really cool stuff to listen to. So check it out if you can. My turn?
Your turn.
All right. What we got next was a big album for me in '78. I got it for Christmas. And I listened to death. I love this album. The second album from Foreigner, Double Vision. We got 3 different covers here. This is the original. They had a couple reissues. I love this whole song because I familiarized myself with it day after day for months. Back in the days when you only had a few records.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you listen to what you had over and over, and that's the best way to get to fall in love with something. The hits on here, Hot Blooded and Double Vision, those were the big ones, but there's not a bad song on here.
Blue Morning, Blue Day is a classic.
Yep.
This is and Spellbinder.
Spellbinder's a great one. Tramontane is a killer instrumental. You're All I Am is probably my favorite ballad that Foreigner ever did. I mean, they were known for ballads later, but this was the first one they ever did.
I was just going to mention that.
It's not sappy. It's just like really heartfelt.
Exactly. That's when you tell a guy into metal or rock that I think this Foreigner album, the first thing they tend to think of is the sappy high school.
I Want to Know What Love Is.
Yeah, and that's not what this was.
This is hard rock.
Straightforward hard rock. It is melodic. It does have a pop edge to it.
Great guitars,
but it's not
by Mick Jones.
It's not sappy like what most people think it is. It's just good.
Mick Jones, basically Mick Jones' band. It was his band, and fresh out of Spooky Tooth years before, which produced a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. It's just Mick's guitar playing was very in the forefront for the first 3 or 4 albums, and then he started taking more of a back seat. I mean, Foreigner was they were a 6-piece when they started. They had a saxophone player, they had a keyboard player. I believe, was it Ian Underwood that was in this band? Ian McDonald, who played with King Crimson for a time. So they were pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Diverse when they started, but they were still mostly guitar based.
And you can't forget Lou Gramm.
Yeah, and Lou Gramm, what a great singer.
Band, yep.
Yeah, he's just a few steps away from Robert Plant in some ways.
Yeah, he's a great singer. And he's still out there doing his thing. Yep. All right, next up, I think I'm up. Yep, this is it's Boogie Rock.
Great album.
Foghat.
Stone Blue.
Did this one come right before or after live album?
After live album, 77.
So they were
a strong follow-up, really.
And they were really big at the time that live album came out.
That live album is one of the classic
78 was 78, 77, 78, 79 was a huge year for live albums. And they were selling like gangbusters at the time. But this was a fantastic follow-up.
Title track on this is a total rock anthem. I mean, when I was Stone Blue, Rock and Roll Sure Helped Me Through. Mm-hmm. Who couldn't relate to that as a big music fan that grew up in the 70s?
And then Chevrolet, remind me what that song, it's a cover song, isn't it?
Chevrolet?
Or it has a, I can't remember now.
Well, Sweet Home Chicago is a cover. It's a blues, old Robert Johnson.
What am I thinking about Chevrolet for?
Easy Money, another great track on here, one of my favorites. Chevrolet, I can't remember.
I thought it had like a riff that was taken from an old blues song or something like that, or
it wasn't a Chuck Berry
inspired
song,
or something like that. I don't know.
Can't remember all of them.
It's just a solid hard rock album.
Yeah, but great album.
Kind of has a similar vibe to Spinal Tap. No.
Everybody has a vibe to Spinal Tap. I'm not sure what they're standing. I always thought they were staying in some kind of tunnel. It's kind of space age looking, but then they got like lasers shining in their heads. But it almost looks like a birdcage too. So I don't know what the hell they're trying to say. Who cares?
Yep.
This was back when drugs led the way.
It's just rock and roll. It's a good rock and roll.
Love Foghat.
Yep.
Can't. Never saw him. Never got to see Foghat, but I love him.
Now this next album that Randy's going to show is. I think some people are going to be surprised that we even showed it in our list.
Well,
but I love this record.
This was Journey, and this was massive Journey. This was before Escape and Separate or Worlds Apart.
Kind of like the Foreigner we just showed. It's pre-sappy high school dance music.
But what was on here? I mean, definitely Wheel in the Sky. That was a pretty rockin' tune.
And it's actually a fairly dark song for Journey.
Yep. Wheel in the Sky keeps turning. Don't Know Where I'll Be Tomorrow. La Dude. That was kind of a funky kind of boogie song for them, you know. Feeling That Way, great song. Anytime. That's another one of those twofers. You can't hear Feeling That Way without hearing Anytime.
Probably, yep.
Right after it. Lights is on here. That, of course, was the big one. And that's still a Journey staple. Great song.
Yep.
Just a great song. Awesome set of artwork. There was about 3 albums that had this kind of that Scarabus theme, but with the, you know, revolving around a planet kind of thing. And it's infinity, so it's got the infinity symbol on there.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Steve Perry's first?
This is Steve Perry's first, but he shared lead vocals with former lead vocalist Gregg Rolie.
Gregg Rolie was on this one, that's right. And Gregg Rolie was former of Santana, played at Woodstock. Neil Schon was formerly of Santana. I don't think he was at the Woodstock show because he was pretty young at that point. But
yeah, Gregg Rolie shared some of the lower register vocals are Gregg Rolie singing, while some of the higher stuff is.
And this is not even the classic Journey lineup. Ainsley Dunbar was the drummer on here, who played with Zappa. He had his own band called Ainsley Dunbar's Retaliation. He was a veteran of the rock scene.
It's just a great album. I love this album. I'm not a big fan of the later Journey stuff, but this album is. If I was only have one Journey album in my collection, this would be the one I'd have.
That'd be the one.
But another thing about this album, produced by Roy Thomas Baker, known for his work with Aerosmith, right?
No, Queen, with Queen and The Darkness later on.
Yep, he did all those classic '70s Queen records.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
He's the one who kind of got this sound, got him to get away from the more bluesy stuff they were doing on the first albums into a more hard rock / pop sound on this one.
Very like jazzy, experimental, almost all instrumental on those first 3 albums. Also, think about it. It's '78. You don't know about what Journey went on to do. This is all you got. And it's pretty damn good for what.
And I love the mix of vocals. I think. I wish they could have kept that. And I think when they lost Gregg Rolie, which they lost him after 2 more albums. And the live album after that, that's when they started going in a totally more pop.
Gregg Rolie, I thought Gregg Rolie was gone after this one.
No, he was there for.
What about Ainsley? Do you remember?
I don't remember how many albums he was around for.
Okay, but definitely not the Journey you'd be used to. A different lineup. There's only 3 guys in the band right there that were around for the like the huge arena rock years.
Right. Next one up is
you or me?
Me. This is Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush Live. This, obviously, I said just earlier, live albums are huge in '78, and for Frank Marino, this was his biggest selling album at the time.
Great player.
Frank Marino was one of those bands that was touring around the world with all the bands like Aerosmith and Ted Nugent, and all those bands that are on that same management team. And whereas before, Frank's stuff was kind of psychedelic, and that's what he considered himself as a psychedelic artist.
From the Hendrix School playing.
From the Hendrix School playing, so it was a mixture of psychedelia and blues.
Yep.
On this one, from the metalhead's perspective, which I am, which I was when I first heard this, I was looking for that heavy sound, and you get that on here.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
and I think a lot of the older bands were trying to get a little heavier because that's the direction things were going.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the songs that did really well on this album aren't even my favorites. I mean, I love the live version of Dragonfly, but it's his version of Purple Haze, Johnny B. Good, and King Bee.
I'm a King Bee, yeah.
Those are the songs that actually did really well.
That's an old blues tune.
It's an old blues song.
Little Walter, I believe.
All cover songs, and those did really well for him. So this album sold great. Just a great live album.
Now, what's the difference between the Frank Marino stuff and the Mahogany Rush stuff? Is there a difference? Different members or something?
Different members. He didn't have Mahogany Rush backing him up, but there was also a change in the sound. He got a new record company, and they were forcing him into an even heavier direction, which he didn't really like that much. He was doing it more because that's what he thought he had to do, I think, from what I understand.
Okay. Which I guess when you're when your music is buying your food,
you do.
You're more apt to do stuff that maybe your heart doesn't.
I read a funny story about Frank Marino, and I'm sorry if I shared this already. I can't remember if I did, but
Ted Nugent thing.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Okay.
We definitely have. When they did Ted insisted they do the guitar duel on stage.
Yeah.
And Ted, I kind of ended up looking like an ass, but.
Well,
oh well.
Actually, Ted did the right thing. He got schooled and he played dead on stage.
But Frank didn't really want to do it. Right?
No, he did not want to do it.
He was kind of like against it because he's not that kind of showman.
Whereas Nugent is all about showman.
Yeah. All right. I'm surprised you're not talking about this one. Doesn't matter though.
I love this record.
It's amazing record. I didn't really get into them until the second one. I just missed this one. Molly Hatchet, self-titled first one with classic Frank Frazetta, which became their trademark, Death Dealer on the front here. I mean, Molly Hatchet, even if the music would have sucked, I mean, I would have bought these just for the covers because they were so good. It's just so cool looking. I mean, you would think they would have been heavier just from the looks of it, but I don't think I necessarily would have expected that they were a Southern rock band. Just looking at the covers.
What was the famous saying about them? Southern rock died when Molly Hatchet was born. Have you ever heard that one?
No, I haven't.
No, yeah. One of the big, I think it was one of the Skinner guys. I can't remember. One of the guys said that, and it was just something that followed him. But the thing was,
I think Hatchet and Skinner were the two heaviest.
They laughed. Well, Blackfoot.
Blackfoot too. You're right.
They laughed themselves to the bank because
yeah.
all the other Southern rock bands did die, but Molly Hatchet thrived not only through the end of the '70s, but well into the '80s, selling out arenas. Again, playing with bands like Aerosmith and Ted Nugent and Frank Marino and Blue Oyster Cult and all those bands that were huge back then.
And what a funny name for a bunch, 5 tough redneck guys from the South. Hatchet Molly was kind of like another legendary figure like Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden, exactly.
She was a murderer that used a hatchet, and they named themselves after a woman, kind of a thing. It's just kind of funny. So Molly Hatchet, what's great on here? The big ones, Bounty Hunter and Gator Country, great tracks.
And then, of course, the Allman Brothers cover.
Yeah, Allman Brothers cover Dreams. Dreams I'll Never See.
It's awesome.
But they totally made it their own.
They totally
made it their own, yeah. Great stuff, great album. And then, of course, the follow-up is Flirting with Disaster, which really put them on the map.
And the thing about this one, compared to Flirting with Disaster, is they didn't quite have the heaviness yet.
Not quite.
This was much more in the vein of what you would hear from Skinner or Allman Brothers. Whereas the next one, I remember Dave Flubuck said in an '85 magazine that I have that Molly Hatchet was one of the first bands to mix Southern rock and heavy metal together.
Right. Wait a minute. But heavy metal in 1978? Can it be true?
But yeah, I mean, this one didn't quite have that, but it did have the triple guitar attack.
Yes, it did, and very few bands actually pulled that off successfully. For some reason, the Southern rock bands they cornered the market on that. Skinner was a 3-guitar band for a time. It's kind of cool. It's just kind of one of those little traits about certain genres.
Not a whole lot of bands did.
No, I can't think of bands outside of the Southern rock genre.
Leather Wolf.
Did they have 3?
Yep.
Really?
Yep, Leather Wolf was a 3-guitar band. Yep.
Yeah, and it's another thing. It's kind of like a few bands had 2 drummers sometimes.
Yeah, that was kind of...
Doobie Brothers did it.
Yep. Genesis did it.
Genesis did it for a time. It's kind of interesting.
See, I guess I'm up. I got 2 different covers on this one here.
Sweet.
This is essentially a Thin Lizzy album, but this is Gary Moore back on the streets. This is Gary Moore sans Thin Lizzy, but
Phil is on here.
Phil Lynott is on here big time. Not only is he on here playing bass, but he sings on here, and he does a lot of writing as well. He one song on here.
Well, Don't Believe a Word is a Lynott composition.
And so is Fanatical Fascists.
Yes, and the cool thing about Don't Believe a Word on here is it's the original slow version.
It's a blues version, a slow blues version.
It's so cool. It's so cool, and it goes into the upbeat bit just for a little bit at the end, so you can kind of things to come.
And then of course you got Parasyne Walkways, which featured both of them.
Yep, but that again, Phil wrote that one. That was his song.
You got Flight of the Snow Moose on here, which is a totally different style from those other songs. Totally different. So
Ryan Downey played on here too. And
you'll get a little bit of a Jeff Beck feel in some of these songs as well.
So what's funny about this is briefly when Thin Lizzy was a 3-piece, when it was Brian, Phil, and Eric Bell. After Eric left, Gary Moore was the 3rd member before they got the double guitar tag going. So the 3 of them are on here.
Yep.
They never really had a proper album. They had a few singles.
Which is the reason I say it's essentially a Thin Lizzy album, not called Thin Lizzy. But
what's one of my favorite titles on here? What is it? What Would You Rather Be, or a Wasp? I love that title.
I always love this back cover.
Yeah, you got the different one. This is the one where he's just like he's got his guitar wrapped up like
this is the U.S. pressing. That's the UK pressing.
Yeah, I think this is the one I have.
That's the second UK pressing because it's got the sticker actually printed on there.
Was this the first one?
This is the U.S. pressing. The first one didn't have this on there, and it had this picture as an inner sleeve.
Oh, so the original one was just without the sticker in the UK. Okay, cool cover. I like it.
I love Gary Moore's solo stuff, and I love him with Thin Lizzy. And
great guitar player.
This was one that I had actually in our top 10, and I took it off because we had to agree.
Too many. Too many.
And I did do a 1978 video about 2 years ago, and if you want to put a link at the end, and you can check that out, and you'll see the difference between us doing this together and what I felt by myself.
Yeah, we're gonna redo the 70s together because we didn't do most of them. All right, what do we got? I'm gonna crack this one open just because there's some stuff to share on the inside.
Yeah.
Great record right here.
Here's one of the Canadian bands that was on my 1978 list that I did by myself.
Yeah, it had to be. This was really. I mean, this was before they hit massive, but just a couple years before they hit massive. Hemispheres by Rush. This is half a concept album. Side 1 is, which they've done before, a couple albums prior they did 2112, which was half a concept album. So side 1 on this one is Cygnus X1 Book 2, which Cygnus X1 was a track from the Farewell to Kings album that was prior to this one. Then side 2's just got great cuts on it. Circumstances, The Trees, and La Via Strangiato. Great classic Rush. We got a cool, we got the gatefold in here.
Yep.
With lyrics and guys, cool shots of the guys. That was still during the Professor period.
I love live shots. Well, that's not live shots. That's post shots, actually.
Yeah, we got live shots.
There is a live shot, on the poster.
And again, this is the classic era Rush. I mean, you got Geddy with his Rickenbacker. Oh. You got Alex Lifeson with his double neck.
Do I need to do this?
Oh yes, you cover up the naked male ass, please. All our female viewers might go crazy. How many we got? Like 2?
Maybe 3.
All right, so we got cool album art that's just, as usual, just layers deep. They're standing on a brain. It's called Hemispheres. You got the left side of the brain that's more creative, the naked side, and you got the proper guy on the right side, the more logical. Really, Rush was never short for depth.
I can remember people always calling them a thinking man's band.
Yeah.
So
great stuff.
It's just a fantastic album.
It is a fantastic album.
If I'm not mistaken, it wasn't a big hit on there as far as being a rock radio hit was The Trees, right?
Probably the most. But Circumstances got a lot of play on FM radio too, and that's kind of one of their deeper cuts that people may not remember as much. But it's a great track. Always one of my favorites.
This next album, I think people are going to be surprised wasn't in my top 10.
But there's a good reason.
But there's a good reason.
A really good reason.
Which you'll see when we do part 2 to this video, which will be our top 10.
Right.
But
oops, sorry.
I happen to have 2 copies of this here. This is Ted Nugent's Weekend Warriors. Now, this is one of the most badass covers ever.
I know. I mean, come on.
Come on, a Gibson Birdland turning into a shotgun. I mean, and Nugent just looks so badass on all white there.
Yeah, he's got his white polyester pants on.
And he's got that guitar face going on, and it's just a cool cover. Now, my discovery of this, I have a cousin who I used to go visit. Lives in Bordentown, New Jersey. And I was just a kid. I'm talking a little kid.
Yeah.
And he had this album at his house, and they were older than me. They didn't care about me. So I would sit in my cousin's room and play his records. And I played this record. And I loved it.
Yeah.
And I constantly would bring it, play this record. And my cousin's mom, who was actually my real cousin, they were second cousins, whatever, made them give it to me, and they were pissed. But
what's awesome, I have a similar story. My cousin was into this stuff, and he loved Nugent, Deep Purple, and I looked up to him and was like, I want to be a rocker too.
Yep.
And I remember asking him, I was a little kid too, like, does his guitar really do that? And he laughed at me. It's like, yeah, stupid kid, go away.
This one actually has a cool insert too. But yeah, I already knew who Nugent was before this. It just has a picture sleeve.
Oh yeah.
Tons of live photos and shots of his kids and stuff like that.
So, that's cool.
And then
and there was always like a nice picture of Ted the Nice Boy on there.
And then there's the picture here. And again, this is another one of those guys, Molly Hatchet, Frank Marino. They were all Leber Krebs bands. Remember the Leber Krebs management?
Yep.
And then also
was this the this was after Derek St. Holmes, correct?
This is after Derek St. Holmes, yes.
So we've got Cliff Davies on here, and we've got
and of course we lost Cliff Davies
back Rob Grange.
We lost Cliff Davies in 2008, I believe.
Oh, we did. Okay.
To suicide, actually.
Oh, that sucks. I always hate hearing that.
Yeah, what I don't know the whole story. From what I read, he was on medication for depression or one of those, anxiety, one of those kind of things, and he got off it or forgot it or
And if you just get off that stuff cold turkey, it can really mess you up.
Yeah, it can mess you up.
And I'm speaking.
I can share really well. My story with my buddy Morgan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who got off medication. You got to watch that stuff.
Which is just a way downer.
So anyhow, this is a great live
This
shot,
was the band that went on and did State of Shock, and they did Scream Dream. This was after the original Ted Nugent band had kind of basically left.
I could talk about this album forever.
Yeah.
I remember when you guys know that for a while, and Randy too, we were only listening to Christian music back in the 90s for a little while. But when I started getting back into secular music, I went to Circuit City and I bought this CD. And I popped it in my car, and I got to Venom Soup. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like seeing an old friend again. And that's how I felt when I was listening to it. And from that point on, so you got Venom Soup, and then Good Friends and a Bottle of Wine.
Which is interesting because Fred Nugent.
Ted doesn't really drink, but
well, and he doesn't reference stuff like that, so it's kind of funny. It's a great tune though, and Need You Bad and Smokescreen.
And one of the most underrated Nugent songs ever, Smokescreen.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites. But there's a couple of cool things on
Ted,
here.
bring back Smokescreen.
Yes. Name Your Poison. There's a song called Name Your Poison on here, and this is like I ripped that title off kind of subconsciously because my old band DT Seizure, our first EP was called Name Your Poison, and I'm pretty damn sure that's where it came from. It was just floating around my head.
This is not a song on here. If I say the title, the chorus to the song or a riff from the song doesn't go through my head.
Yep. Great songs on here. Great stuff.
Yep.
My turn.
Sure. All
right. Scorpions, Taken by Force.
Wait, how come that's not in the top 10?
Another good reason.
Yep.
Very, very good reason. Taken by Force this was the final studio album with Uli, I believe.
It absolutely was.
They went through a major change after this one.
Actually, and I think this album was kind of a crossover sound.
Yep.
It was, you could hear the change here.
I mean, this has one of my favorite songs of all time by
See if it's
Scorpions.
the same as mine. Tells us wrong?
No, We'll Burn the Sky.
There you go.
I have it tattooed on my friggin' arm, jeez. And it's because of my wife and everything. But first time I heard "We'll Burn the Sky" was off of Tokyo Tapes. I was 15 years old, and that song just haunted me. I was like, wow, that song's so. It's about a guy who his mate dies, and it's like, but it's not like a total downer song. It's a very uplifting song. It was written by Jimi Hendrix's girlfriend. I don't know how the Scorpions ended up doing it, but it was his girlfriend.
Wait, is that kind of like a reunion thing where they get to meet in the sky? Or
like We'll Burn the Sky when it's time for me to die.
Right.
And the guy
it's
singing
it's we'll get to see again, and
Right. It's a very hopeful song, and it's very cool and it's very unique. And I've always been really impressed by it. But other great tunes on here, Sails of Sharon,
obviously,
like you said.
And then one
He's a Woman, She's a Man.
Classic song.
Steam Rock Fever's a great rocker.
That's
good
one
stuff.
Steam Rock Fever and He's a Woman, She's a Man kind of gave you the direction they were going in.
Yep.
And those are songs that Uli didn't write.
Right. And Uli, another one, Hendrix School for sure.
Oh yeah.
But not as apparent on this one.
No.
Not even close.
All right. Speaking of Hendrix influenced peoples.